Brew, you're in the way. You can't just stand right here, buddy. Oh, you want me to just pet your face? Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. It has been a very, very long time since you've seen my face on here in this way. I thought that I would do something a little bit different going in 2024 because if you might notice in the background here, I have moved and I don't have all of my books here. I don't have like any books here. So there is no background to film in front of. There are no books to hold up for videos because I don't have any. So I was thinking, like, in what ways could I film still and like make it interesting and make it unique and make it like a fun experience when I don't have any of my filming equipment, you know, like things. This is, I think, how I'm going to try to do wrap-ups for 2024. I haven't filmed a wrap-up since 2021, I believe, so I haven't talked about quite a few books that I've read. I can go back and do that if you would like. I can, you know, do like a speedy round. I can think of something fun to recap on all the books that I've read since I've been gone. It's not many because I haven't been reading very much, but I was thinking that like for 2024, I will just like film a clip. You missed the couch. I literally just fluffed those pillows because of exactly this. So I was thinking for filming wrap-ups in 2024, I would try to film like my wrap-up clip at the end of every time I finish a book to make it like fun and interesting and a little vloggy, since that's like the vibe that we have to work with right now is like, you know, vlog style. I'm literally balancing you on a water bottle, so it feels very vlog style. Thank you for smushing my pillows. So with that being said, let's go ahead, and now she's making shadows. Are you done? So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the first book that I finished in 2024, which is Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath. This is the second book in the series by Sarah J. Maas. I literally just finished this today, so thoughts are still like not fully formed, but I did enjoy this. I really had a great time reading this one. It took me quite a while, like probably about a month to finish this book. It is very long, it's very chunky, it's like 800 pages. And I feel like both of these books in this series could really use some like more editing. They're feeling very Cassandra Clare-ish in that no one is really editing their books anymore. And they're just allowing them to write 800 page long books for like no reason. There's a lot of filler content or like content that is too long and like not tight enough, which makes the books really long and a little like weird pacing wise. Like there's just a lot of stuff in here that I think could have either been shortened or cut out entirely. I mean, I feel that way about Cassandra Clare's books as well. So I just think that like their editing team is doing them a disservice by not making these books tighter and more succinct. You do get like a lot of backstory and stuff on characters that we aren't like super attached to yet. So she's probably doing this as well in like the later books of Throne of Glass and ACOTAR. But I was, you know, several books in both those instances where I was very attached to these characters and I had a very like strong emotional attachment to the characters. So it was okay. I was okay with it being so long, but being that this book and this series starts off like right off the bat with like a really aggressively long book for characters that we don't really know that well yet and that we're not like super invested in, just feels a little long, a little rambly, a little unedited. That was a hard word to say. But I do really enjoy this world. I do think like the mix of like modern technology and, you know, medieval fae magic and shifters and angels is really interesting. Not only is it a really interesting thing to read about, but it also like has a precedence for the world. Like there is a reason that their world is built like this. And why they have like modern technology but also are still fae, and I think the explanation of that and like the exploration of that is really fun. It's different from anything in her other two books, which are very heavily like medieval Lord of the Rings kind of inspired. So the fact that this is a little bit different was really fun. I think Bryce is her most, what is the word I want to use? I don't even know how to describe this main character. Like, I don't want to say she's aggressive or brash or like promiscuous or like any of those things because they're very like negative connotations. But you can definitely tell that Bryce was written from her as like an older woman, not as like a teenager in a young 20s, but she does kind of feel like she fits this ideal or this like preconceived notion of like a wild woman, if that makes any sense. Like the way that millennials are described as like these wild women who like are untethered by marriage and like unbound by societal rules and don't have kids and are dog moms, like in like that kind of way is what Bryce reminds me of. Like somebody who's not that writing that does, because Sarah J Maas is not those things. But she's writing about a character who feels like she should be those things. Does that make any sense? I don't know how else to describe it. Like she wants to be relatable to me, but it was written by somebody who is not relatable to me, so it didn't feel authentic to me. Does that make sense? I do enjoy her character. I just think she tries too hard sometimes with Bryce. Like Bryce is just like too slotted into like a niche or a stereotype that she thinks is what these people are. Does that make, I don't think that makes any sense. But that is how I feel about Bryce as a main character. I still really enjoy her though. I'm also like way less attached to the main, like to the male characters in this book than any of the other books of hers that I've read. Like I don't really find them to be as alluring or as interesting maybe as Rune and Rowan, not Rune, as Rhysand and Rowan. And I don't know if that's because I'm older or if it's like a change in me or a change in the books, but I felt like way more invested in both Rhys and Rowan, and I was like to the point where I was like I would name a dog Rhys or Rowan, or like a cat, or like I would name something. I'm so obsessed with them. But like Hunt just doesn't really fit that for me, which is really interesting. And I'm also interested that like it's Rhys and Rowan, which is R and R, and then Hunt is an H. But there's Rune in here. Would that have just been too similar to make her love interest Rune? Rune, Rhys, and Rowan, is that just like too similar? And so she made it Hunt instead. Anyway, I have lots of visitors in this video today. There were a lot of revelations at the end of this book that like make me really freaking hyped for the third book that comes out, and it's only like 10 days until that third book comes out, so I'm glad that I waited and held off reading on this because I'm like really excited, and I don't know if I could have contained myself for a whole year or 2 years or however long it's been since this came out. Like I needed to not wait that long, so I'm glad that I didn't have to wait that long. If you weren't aware or didn't know, this is a series about a girl. Her name is Bryce. She's in her early 20s. She's working in this like gallery antiquities dealership, and her best friend is named Danica. And her and Danica are out partying one night, or she's out partying one night, and she comes home from partying and finds her best friend Danica and all of their roommates dead. And it kind of launches her on a murder mystery investigation in this fae human world, and like all of the political machinations of this world and the different creatures, because there's so many different kinds of like otherworldly creatures that she has to recruit to help her and that become her friends. And it has like a lot of very found family aspects, which is also very common in Sarah J Maas's books. But yeah, it's like the first murder mystery investigation book that we've like had from her, where the whole point and whole goal like that sets off the series is the death of her best friend, and like what she's going to do to avenge her best friend's death, and like how that changes her as a person. I think I would give it a like 4.5 out of 5 stars. So let's talk about the next book that I read in 2024. So the second book that I finished this year was In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This is like a thriller murder mystery novel. I was like thinking, is it really a murder mystery? But yes, it's a thriller murder mystery novel. This is what I picked out of my cup of choices for this past round. And this is a book that I had wanted to read because of Lala from Books and Lala, which is very interesting because like historically we don't have this like similar tastes in thrillers at all. I've read quite a few that she loves, and I just tend to never like them. So this was a gamble of a choice for me. You're being so needy. Okay. Why are you getting so close to my face? I actually ended up really enjoying this one, and I'm very surprised that I enjoyed it so much. This was a book that I had a really hard time putting down. Once I got invested in the story, I felt compelled to read it, which is something I have had a really hard time with in books recently. We follow this character, our main character, her name is Jessica. It's like a dual timeline or multiple timeline kind of story. We're following her in the present day, where she is invited to go back to her college's 10-year reunion. And then we're also following her and several of the other characters in the past, different point of views from their time in college. It all culminates around this event of one of their friends in the friend group being murdered their senior year of college, and then one of the other friends in the friend group being found as the perpetrator. 10 years later, things may not be as they seem. Secrets might have been kept. Storylines may not have been completely accurate. And so she's kind of investigating while she's back on campus with her, for her 10-year reunion, what might have actually happened 10 years prior when her best friend was murdered. There's just like a lot of villains in the story. Like, everybody is a villain for somebody else. Everybody's a villain in somebody else's story. And I just thought that was really interesting, because even though obviously the real villain is the person who killed the friend, lots of them are villains. Like, lots of them have done things that are, terrible friends, just like at the base of it, but also like illegal, or now you're here being needy. What do you want from me? Can you just go lay down somewhere? I really enjoyed it. I like that there were like several reveals leading up to the big reveal, and so we had a lot of like mini things revealed to us, and so it felt almost like even if you weren't right in the end, you were right about something along the way. Like, it made you feel like you were winning and being successful as a reader as you were like uncovering each little piece of truth, and that was very rewarding as a reader. I like that our character is an unreliable narrator. I don't always jive with unreliable narrators. This one I really liked. Books I've read that are unreliable narrators are characters, specifically like middle-aged women who have a drinking problem, and this was not that. She wasn't really necessarily a middle-aged woman, and it wasn't a drinking problem, but it, like, I don't know, it made sense for the story, and it was compelling, and I really enjoyed this. I know this is like a really big fan favorite on the book internet space, and I get why. I understand why. It was really fun and really enjoyable, and I had a good time reading it, and I would give this a... Can we not? I would give this a 4 out of 5 stars. Let's go ahead and talk about the third book that I finished this year, which is Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. This is a contemporary romance, rom-com. I don't want to say smut, even though I feel like Tessa Bailey typically does write like smuttier romance. Being annoying. We're gonna go when I'm done. Contemporary romance that is, I think, supposed to be, or at least is marketed very obviously by the cover, as a Christmas read. I originally started this around Christmas. There's a piece of hair in my face that I like can't get out of my eyeballs. I had originally started this around Christmas with the intention of it being like my Christmas read for 2023, and I would say that this book hinges on no Christmas plot. Like, yes, the events of the book are working up towards Christmas Eve, but we could pick any holiday. We could pick any random day. She could invent an anniversary and it would be the same storyline. So like, it could be 4th of July. It could be a anniversary tour date or an anniversary band date of some kind. It didn't have to be Christmas Eve. The only slightly Christmassy thing that we really get is a Christmas gala of sorts, but again, you could make a gala any time of the year, and then a snowball fight, which we could have replaced with beach volleyball, tennis, badminton, I don't know, something. We're following these two characters, Beat and Melody. The names say enough. And they are the children of this duo legend rocker group called Steelbirds. So there's 2 women in this band, Octavia and Trina, and they are the children of, each person. And back in the early 90s, when this band was literally the biggest thing since sliced bread, they had a big falling out. And for the past 30 years, there's been this huge controversy, huge conspiracy over why the band broke up. There is so much animosity between them. And so it's always been like everybody's dream to have them get back together. So there's this producer of this reality TV show who approaches their children to ask them to help stage an intervention, and they're going to live stream the whole thing with the hopes that they're going to have a Christmas Eve reunion for the band. Meanwhile, the two main characters obviously don't know each other because their moms hate each other. So they're falling in love on this national live stream broadcast. There is a like mysterious element to Beat because he is being blackmailed by somebody in his life, and the circumstances surrounding that blackmailer really play into like the storyline as a whole. But in general, I was not this book's biggest fan. I was not Steelbird's #1 fan. I've read a couple of Tessa Bailey's books in the past. She wrote the Fixer Up series, and I think she wrote Hook, Line, and Sinker, or It Happened One Summer, whatever that duology is. And then I've read this. This is, I think, the 6th book that I've read from her, and I really enjoyed the first 2 that I read. It's been a slow progression of maybe these books, this author, this type of story is just not for me anymore. And I think this one really solidified that it is just not for me anymore. I will no longer be picking up Tessa Bailey, even though I think I once had, you know, deemed her a favorite romance author. No longer. The amount of like really uncomfortable dirty talk in her books has me ended. Like, I can't do it anymore. It's so cringy, and I have a really hard time believing or buying that people actually speak like this when they're, you know, in intimate moments. Like, I can't. I couldn't take it seriously. Also, the fact that the main characters are Beat and Melody, and on top of that, the lack of Christmas also was very obnoxious to me. And I think that's partly why I just continued reading it and finishing it in February, because it didn't feel Christmassy really at any point in the book. And so I didn't feel like I had to wait to read it in Christmas time, because it really wasn't. It's called Wreck the Halls, but like, it's not Christmassy in any way. And then the progression of their relationship is just too fast. It is over the span of like 2 weeks, and by the end of it, they are, you know, it's a romance book, so obviously there's a happily ever after. If you didn't know that about romance books, that's kind of like the whole point. So I don't think that should be a spoiler. But they are 100% gung-ho, like in it for the long haul by the end of this book, and it had been 2 weeks. 2 weeks! Like, how do you know people in 2 weeks to like want to sacrifice your entire identity to them? It was wild. And also there is a specific like moment in the book where Beat says something to Melody during sex that had me literally wanting to upchuck vomit. Also, the like reason for his kink, he has like a real like tortured, oh, I'm a millionaire's son, pity me, like weird kink that didn't do it for me either. Like, I just wasn't a fan of it. So in all, this is probably the last Tessa Bailey book for me. If you catch me reading another Tessa Bailey book, yell at me and tell me that remind me like, hey, you did not like the other 4 that you've read. So maybe it's time to put her aside. That's gonna be a no for me. A no for me, dog. So let's go ahead and talk about the 4th book that I read in 2024, which was The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the 4th book in the Hawthorne Brothers series, I think is the name of it. And I think there's like 5 or 6 books in it now. It originally was a trilogy. This takes place chronologically after the other 3, and we're following more of the Hawthorne brothers, as the name suggests, compared to the main character Avery. Avery still very much has an integral role in this book, but she's not the main character. We're mainly following Grayson and Jameson, who are the 2nd and 3rd brothers in the 4, as they are delving more into their fathers and their fathers' lives and their fathers' past and their families. We learn in the original series that the Hawthorne brothers, who Avery goes to meet in Texas, they're this billionaire family that she gets the inheritance to, rather than going to the grandchildren, the 4 brothers, that each of the brothers have a different father, and they all have the same mother, who is one of the daughters of the billionaire. So we learn a little bit about some of the other brothers' fathers in the original trilogy, but this is really an opportunity to learn about Grayson's family, because his father did have an additional, like, I don't want to give anything away, but there was like additional people in his life that he interacted with on a daily basis. And so Grayson gets to meet them and learn more about his father through them. And same with Jameson. We get introduced to his father as well, and his father's storyline is like where the game element of the book continues. Like the clues and the riddles and the puzzle solving, that really continues in his father's storyline. Avery and Jameson travel across the ocean. I think, is it to England? I think they travel to London. I can't remember off the top of my head anymore. And they join this like mysterious underground secret society club thing, and they have to, you know, solve puzzles and win prizes and things like that. I really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed, I think, everything that I've read from Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I think she's a really fun and creative YA mystery writer. I have a really hard time historically with YA mysteries, and, you know, books like this. I know there's a lot of them now that have these like game murder mystery elements to them, but I really think that she, for me, does it the best. So I enjoyed this one. I also enjoyed learning more about the brothers. They all have very different parental figures who are all in their lives very differently. And they all have different relationships with their fathers. And so getting to explore that more here was really, really fun. And there's a major dichotomy difference between Jameson and Grayson and their like family ties. And to learn more about like the brothers as well, and how their brain operates and how they think and how they see the world, and like how they've become who they've become. So I really enjoyed this. I'm glad that she wrote additional books in this series. So sometimes when you continue after an initial trilogy wraps up, feel money hungry, and I really enjoyed this. I know there's another one coming out. Games Untold is what it's called, and the only thing that the description says is a world of decadence, a world of games, questions will be answered, mystery solved, and then a bunch of numbers, which I'm gonna guess is some kind of like game, which, you know, plays right into the storyline. This is hard. Did I enjoy Jameson or Grayson's storyline more? I think they were so different. I liked learning about Grayson as a person, and I liked learning about his relationships with the people he was meeting. Like, he has definitely more, I think, growth and fullness feeling to his arc than Jameson does. Jameson doesn't feel like he's quite gotten there yet. He is the younger of the two, and he has like some more growing and maturing to do. And I feel like you feel that a little bit here. But Jameson's storyline was fun because it had the games and it had the problem solving and the mysteries and the puzzles. So I liked them both for different reasons, and it made it not feel slumpy through one POV over the other, which was very smart on her part. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. All right, and for the fifth and most recent read I've completed this year, we have The Sword of Summer, which is the first book in the Magnus Chase in the Gods of Asgard series by Rick Riordan. This is a reread for me. I initially read this book back in 2015. I don't know, whenever it first came out. There is a very old review of this on my channel. Can't say that I would support everything I have said in that video. Haven't watched it in a long time, don't know what I said, but, you know, go in with the idea that it was nearly 10 years old. I wanted to reread this, I think, because we were like on a Marvel kick rewatch for a long time, and, you know, Thor is involved in that, and I was like, oh, I really want more of that. I'm gonna go read these books. I never finished the series, so I thought now's the perfect time to do that. So I reread this. It's actually, I think, the third time I've reread this book. So hopefully this is actually the time that I continue with the series and finish it, since that's clearly something I want to do and I just never like do it. But I don't know, it was enjoyable. It's a Rick Riordan book. It's exactly what you would expect from one of his books. It's witty, it's humorous, about a 16-year-old boy who finds out he's the son of a Norse god and has to help save the world from Ragnarok. you know, from the end of the world, which is a common theme for any of the mythological tales he tells, whether that be Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Norse. It's a common theme for all of his books. You also had just watched this TV show fairly recently, the Percy Jackson one, and so that was also like in my brain. So that might have also played into why I decided to pick this up. I don't know that I'd recommend it to people who are not like 12. I know that's the targeted age range here, but I don't know, it was enjoyable. I had a good time. I don't really have a lot to say about this one because I've read it now like 3 times. Not much to say there.